Hello, my name's Jeremy, and if you're clicking on this video, you're interested in my experience of being an online doctoral student. My intention for creating these videos is to give a realistic expectation of what being a doctoral student is like online. Just my opinion, and I guess I wish that there were videos like this online to help me make a better decision, which I'm glad that I made the decision that I did. So 2 parts of this video. The first part is going to give you a glimpse into what I've been studying over the past few weeks, and then reinforce some things that I think people should know in the second part of the video. So I am in the Bellevue University Doctor of Business Administration program. I'm in my 4th and 5th class. The 4th class is Human Capital Management, and the 5th class is a foundational course to the capstone that I have to do in order to walk across the stage. There's so much reading. Oh my gosh, there's so much reading. So Human Capital Management. So the topics that we discussed over the past 3 weeks, because I'm in the 3rd week of the 4th and 5th class, is social capital, organizational culture, and I'm going to say that there was one other thing. I can't remember what the first week topic was, but it's so interesting because you learn things that you observe on a daily basis, but you learn what's beneath the surface, right? For example, if, and I'm just making this up, if it is custom to prank an intern on the first day, that is as a result of the environment that's been created due to the culture that's been established, right? It is norm, it is expected, it is what has not been checked or given feedback about. But in an indirect way, it forces the intern to say, oh, this is what I should expect to happen, being the new kid on the block, right? And then also, if you have a manager that is not the best, right? And they've been rewarded because of their ability to get performance, but the environment that they create is toxic, that's because the culture that has been established over time has okayed that by someone not checking it. There are multiple variables that could create a culture, or values or variables. For example, benevolence was, I believe, a dimension of organizational culture, meaning that you really care for the well-being of the next person. And in an environment that has a benevolent dimension, or is benevolent, pranking the intern may not be a behavior that you would see on a regular basis, right? If anything, it would be giving them a gift basket, or having a welcome cake for them, or anything that would help ensure that their well-being is what it needs to be in order for them to perform, right? And it's interesting that there's so much research on how organizational culture and the environment that's created can predict the performance or the outcomes of an organization. Super interesting. And then also social capital. And of course, there's not a universal definition, at least what I understand, there's not a universal definition of what social capital is, but it's this idea that when you have social interactions and people have common values and common goals, and of course so much more, there's this substance, or this this outcome that's created that helps the organization achieve its goals. In other words, if your social capital stock is low, there are certain things that are not going to happen in your organization. For example, if you have groups that don't mesh well, then you might have a low stock of social capital, meaning you won't be innovative, meaning you won't be able to get to the root cause of certain issues, and you may lose your competitive advantage, right? Versus having certain interventions to help people commingle, interact, recognize that they have commonalities, shared values, and get them talking and create the culture and environment that encourages that, it would increase your stock of social capital, meaning I'm more willing to trust somebody. I might give them information without realizing it, and we may be able to strike up a conversation that says, oh, well, that's how you solve that problem. And that solution may help the company solve this multi-million-dollar issue that's been going on for the past 5 years because nobody's been talking, right? So that's human capital management. Super interesting class. And then the foundational course to my capstone, is a lot. So we're learning about the different research methods, qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods research, how theories are used in those research methods, and how data collection is different based on the method that you choose. Qualitative meaning you might be doing interviews, non-numerical things, or your data is non-numerical, and then quantitative meaning that there's a number, there's quantity. So you may approach something different with a qualitative research approach compared to a quantitative and or mixed methods, which is the both of them combined. There was an interesting topic about transformative framework, which suggests that researchers should be aware of certain biases that they have when doing research. For example, if you are from America and or the United States of America, and you're doing research on people in third world countries, then that framework would help you recognize the disparities between the two countries and help you ensure that you're not being blindsided or inadvertently overlooking certain experiences or things that may happen that you may say, well, that's the same across the board for everybody. No, in actuality, it's not. And with that framework, it helps you to be a better researcher. So that way you're not interpreting data in a way that disadvantages the third world population that you may be sampling. There's an example that I saw online. There was a Black doctor who was reading research articles about kidney functions. And if I'm not mistaken, he suggested that in Black patients, you will see a trend in certain kidney functions. And the researcher who initially was collecting data didn't take that into consideration, meaning that they had this hypothesis that was then published that people could have applied to their Black patients. And because they didn't take into consideration what typically happens with kidney functions in Black patients, they would have been prescribed medicines or procedures that they didn't need. But that transformative framework would have helped them to recognize differences in patients, differences in life experiences, just differences and uniqueness within patients to help them have extra context of why certain things may happen with certain people. Super interesting. So how could I apply that to the class, what I'm learning in my first class and second class, to my everyday job? So I'm currently in HR, for which this video has nothing to do with. Let's say that I'm interested in understanding the common value of creativity impacts organizational outcomes, right? So first, one would have to, it depends on if it's quantitative or qualitative or mixed methods research. I would either have the theory up front, or I would be proving have a hypothesis that then is explained by the theory. So let's say that I think the more creativity is welcomed in an environment, the more likely innovation will happen as an organizational outcome, right? And let's say that I decide to do take a qualitative research approach, meaning that I do my research, I do a literature review, I learn the different methods that people have used in collecting data about creativity and innovation. I come up with my method and I do interviews, and then I do an analysis of some sort that validates, yes, when creativity is encouraged in an organization, you are more likely to see innovation. Well, if I can prove that, then I would suggest to organizational leaders or executives or C-suite executives, in order for us to create a competitive advantage within the company, creativity needs to be a core value that you not only preach about, but demonstrate in your everyday interactions. By doing that, you make it easy for people to share information, to try different things, to fail, to look at things as lessons learned in order to use the outcomes of certain situations as a way to say, okay, well, I can approach that differently and come up with products and services that may not have come to fruition because creativity wasn't encouraged, right? I hope that made sense. So yeah, it's so interesting how now, in me just simply observing people and how they interact with one another, I trace that back to variables that might sit or contribute to a construct or a theory, like an overarching theory, and say, of course, there would have to be research done to prove it, but I'm pretty sure if they changed this, this, and this, that they would get this outcome, right? So super interesting so far. And then prior to this class of human capital management, I had leadership in global organizations. So if I were to tack that on to what I just said, having developmental programs and selection methods of executive leaders that can encourage creativity and have the ability, the competence, I should say, to create the culture and environment that welcomes creativity and does that in not just a domestic environment, but a global environment, with all the nuances and differences that may happen between me working as an executive in the United States of America versus taking an expat assignment and going to Europe, right? Being able to do all of those things at the same time. And then business and society was my first class, tacking that on as an executive leader. I'm thinking the decisions that I'm making about including this variable of creativity into my organization not only impacts my business that I'm running, and the company that I work for, but also this new product or service may have a positive or negative impact on the local community. And how do I solve for the product life cycle that may have a negative impact on the environment, right? It's so much, but it's so fun. I hope that all of that made sense. So, best practices. Hopefully you've made it through the video thus far. There are 4 things that I'd love to share with you. 1, knowing your why, which I talked about in a previous video. Having a social network and having a support system and having the mental capacity. Knowing your why is super important because when you identify the program that you want to go in, if the program and the courses within the program and the school do not help align you with that end goal, then you may need to keep researching because you don't want to graduate and then not have a way to connect with your end goal, right? If you want to be a software developer, your program, the school, and the courses within the program need to align with you being a software developer. So you have to have a first have a conversation with yourself about what do I want to do. The next thing is networking. I'll go with that. Networking helps to open doors that hard work by itself cannot open. People like working with people who they can trust and that they somewhat know or have a connection with of some sort. And the more that you network, the more likely you are to get information, and the more likely you are to have certain opportunities and connections that other people who don't network will not have. So hopefully you're doing that throughout your program. The next thing, and I'll take a step back, your school, hopefully they have an alumni network that can help you with networking, or internships that can help you with opportunities. Support system. It is so important to talk to your family, your loved ones, and even people at work, especially those that have gone through PhD programs, to make sure that they're going to be there for you in ways that they can be based on what they can do, right? So if you have a significant other, if you have children, have those conversations up front with, listen, I'm going to be dedicated the next 2 to 3 years to this program. It's going to take a lot of information, a lot of energy out of me. I may show up differently on different days, but I just need you to be patient with me. I think it's also important to have a mentor that I talk to occasionally. She's gone through a PhD program, and she helps to ground me and encourage me and motivate me to say that I can do it. And that's so important. Hopefully within your program, you identify somebody who you can connect with and stay in contact with to keep you motivated, that's in the trenches with you. And mental capacity, give yourself space, give yourself grace, because it's a lot of information. In 1 week, I know that I've read over 3 to 4 articles that were at least 15 pages each. And even if I didn't read the article from start to finish, the amount of information that I read from the article was enough to make you say, whew, it's a lot, in addition to having to read a chapter out of a book. I chunk my assignments. In other words, I read 5 pages, I stop. What did I just read? How is it implied? What is it saying? What is it not saying? Take notes and then move forward. And then next 5 pages and then next 5 pages. You have to be super organized. You have to be super organized, meaning you're taking your articles that you're reading, you're creating a Google sheet or an Excel spreadsheet with the citation, notes, authors, keywords, so on and so forth. I think that's a lot for one video, so I'm going to stop there. Hopefully you took away that being an online student at the doctorate level, a hybrid student, an in-person student for any doctoral program is a lot. And it takes a lot of commitment, takes a lot of grit, motivation, determination. And you just have to have the why nailed down. You have to have the support system. You have to be able to network and have the mental capacity. I meditate and I work out on a regular basis as a part of taking care of my mental and physical well-being. Because if not, you can burn out really quickly. And that's not something that you want to do. Taking the assignments that you're learning and asking yourself repeatedly, what did I just read? What does it mean? What is it saying? What is it not saying? How can I apply it to things that I've gone through in the past? How can I apply it to things that I see happening within my company, within the industry that my company operates in? And just keep going. If you take anything from this video, it's a lot, but it will be worth it. Develop your network, be self-aware about where you are, and keep the momentum where you can keep the momentum. Have a great day.